What it do, geography students? This is your Mr. Carly IB Geography Review over Unit 5, also known as Theme E in your IB Geography Guide, which is Paper 1, which is a geographic theme. This theme is sports, leisure, and tourism. You have to say it as leisure or it's not right. So I'm going to run through these slideshows. I already put in teams. They are the modified versions that are specifically for studying and kind of cut out a lot of the warm-ups and the breaks and all that stuff. So also real quick, if you go to the cover sheet, this gives you all the things that you need to know. So our big focus questions are: what can patterns of sports, leisure, and tourism tell us about global interaction and sustainability? And hopefully you can kind of develop an answer to that question, because that's what's supposed to make life go. The first question kind of relates to processes and place. So we're looking at how things have changed over time, how we categorize tourism, different types of economic development. We had to have two specific case studies. So I try to put where the actual case studies are. In this case, we did the US versus China, one middle income, one high income country, and how they've had changes in leisure activity. And then different things. This is a question, man, they ask this question all the time in 10-point essays. So looking at different things, different attributes or characteristics, and how those impact participation in sports and tourism. So the big ones were affluence, gender, stage and life cycle, personality traits, and place of residence, or how far away you are from something. Anyway, national tourism and sport we talked about, with primary and secondary spheres of influence and national sports leagues. One festival in a rural location, we did Burning Man. International tourism, big focus on the 2012 London Olympics. If you did that assignment, you should be in good shape for that. And then future tourism management, which was several things. A couple of those were on your own assignments. So I'm gonna run through the content that I have, but don't forget, everything is in the pink packet, sorry. All right, so first off, we had to define the big terms. Leisure activity was kind of about things that you do when you're not working. They're leisurely. You're not like in a hurry to do them. And then we looked at how it's growing over time. And overall, what we're seeing is that in OECD countries, at least, leisure is growing. In a lot of countries, especially middle-income countries, it's growing the fastest. Leisure time is growing the fastest. Sorry, I just cracked open a can of Coca-Cola Zero. Definitely not a beer while I'm doing this review. I'm literally at school right now. That was a joke. Please do not report me. Anyway, so here's some reasons for growth in leisure that we talked about: the reductions in the length of the working day, growth in variety of activities, especially in high-income countries, development of technology that enables people to spend less time on chores and personal care, increases in wages, earlier retirements, and links to gender, income, and life expectancy, which we talk about later. If you notice, a lot of these have to do with economic development. As nations develop economically, they go into the high-income country status. They will tend to develop a lot of these different things. It's not the only thing that matters, but things that lead to economic growth, or at least HDI, Human Development Index growth, will tend to lead to greater leisure time and growth of leisure activities. We looked at some national trends. One big thing is the gender divide in leisure time. In high-income countries across the board, for the most part, you're going to see more leisure time being taken by men as opposed to women, even in high-income countries where men and women are sharing the workload in terms of economic activities for payment, because women tend to still do, because of generally gender norms, most of the housework during the evenings. So categorization, we talked about, you got to be comfortable with these ideas here. We talked about primary and secondary resources. That comes up over and over again. The great thing about geography is it's a system. It's a lot of the same kind of thing over and over, but you got to be able to apply it. So we talked about primary resources are things that are existing attractions for tourism and recreation, not built. Sorry, I should say built specifically for that purpose. Talked about secondary resources, which are things that you need in order to take advantage of primary resources and eventually make a place a long-term tourist hotspot, or honeypot, as people say in Europe, apparently. I don't know. And then we'll talk about this later. This comes up later, but the differences between niche, mass, and ecotourism. Ecotourism is technically a type of niche tourism, but it's usually sectioned out for sustainability. But niche, specific, generally short duration, higher cost, and then mass tourism is anything that achieves economies of scale, which means that it tends to be cheaper because you're kind of producing the same thing for everybody. Okay, there. Oh, that was when Clayton Baker got mad at me. So there it is larger. Then we did, this is just categorizing. I'm not going to go through that again. You can check that out at your leisure, no pun intended. Factors affecting participation. So as nations develop, participation activities becomes mostly due to income and free time that you have, but there's other things that impact it as well. Physical factors. So having climatic, not climactic, climatic elements such as mountains or good climate, coastal regions, inland bodies of water, human factors, which are the wealth to support the tourism, the political stability where people want to go there, social factors related to affordability, which means that most people in different social classes can afford leisure activities and they're not kind of sequestered out of it as a result of income or other sociocultural factors. Cultural norms and history of an area also impact it as well. I did kind of go over this personality factors. It's kind of about like we measure personality traits in what's called the Big Five, and one of them is openness, as in like openness to new experiences. And I think that's the big one. People that are open to new experiences will tend to want to go farther away. In geographic studies, they call these highly adventurous, called allocentrics, and people who rarely leave their home environment called psychocentrics. So these are people that, how far you're willing to go, the type of niche versus mass tourism can be based on personality factors, and personality factors can be at scale. You can see common personality factors in various regions and in various nations as well. Environment plays a role. Life cycle factors are related to not so much how much participation, but the types of things you do. You're talking about what kind of travelability you have, your level of independence. There's this whole thing called silver tourism, which is tourism solely for people that are retired or getting into their golden years or older ages, silver. Anyway, so those are things as well. It's not about the amount of tourism, but the type of tourism that people are going to be interested in. And gender as well. So we went around and we looked at some different examples of that. That would be topic 1 for you. Let me check my time, make sure. I have to see if I'm going to have to make 2 videos. This, man, 7 minutes. That's like half my time just for that topic. Jeez, yeah, it takes a long time. All right, so anyhow, I will get out of 5.1. 5.2 was looking at specific issues of local and national tourism. Did some infographic practice when we started that off. What I definitely don't need is for my computer to crap out while I'm doing this. We're recording right now. Sorry. All right, well, I guess we're closing out of it. I don't even know if it's still recording this. Okay. Yeah, it seems like through all that we were still recording. Great. Okay. Anyway, sorry, I'm gonna have to leave that in because I'm not a professional YouTuber, so I'm gonna have to just keep that. Luckily, I didn't drop any profanity. So, one thing we're really trying to look at here are what makes a place a tourist hotspot, whether you are a rural area or an urban area. Man, this PowerPoint is really bothering us. So anyway, I'm going to not open it. We watched a video on Peru and a video on Brussels, Belgium. You got rural versus urban hotspots. Notice that in rural areas, you have a lot more of those primary tourist resources. In urban areas, you're going to need, by definition, you're going to need more of those secondary resources. We talked about a little bit of the issue of over-tourism, and there's an article on that. We talked a lot about over-tourism in 5.4 as well, with carrying capacity, things of that nature. Also talked about sphere of influence. We talked about that in urbanization in urban areas, but we also talked about it in tourist areas. So how do you decide what type of sphere of influence, how far out the catchment is going to be for that type of activity? And things that have low catchments or not a large sphere of influence are generally considered low order attractions, and things with a higher threshold and a higher range are going to have higher catchments or a larger sphere of influence. So it's usually based on the range, how far people are willing to go, and the threshold, how many people are necessary in order to support the activity. So something that's a national sports league, the NBA or the MLB, or soccer teams in the UK, they're going to need they have a high range and a high threshold, whereas a city playground or park or sports arena, just a local arena, is going to have a smaller threshold. So Boise, for example, recently is getting like a semi-pro soccer team. That's kind of that mid-level, middle threshold, middle range kind of thing. Then we did a case study of the National Basketball Association. Check out your case study. That was the situation there, is going to give you a lot of that information about what impacts national sports leagues, which is one of the big case studies. Also, watch this video on over-tourism once again. We did a overview of how we look at environmental, social, and economic impacts of large-scale events. The large-scale event that we looked at was Burning Man. So for that, you're going to want to look at how is it impacting the environment in terms of its carbon and ecological footprints, air pollution, waste disposal. If it's in an urban area, you might see issues of urban stress and how that's being attempted to be reduced. And then social and economic is, does it provide positive or negative economic impacts? Are those economic gains felt across the entire population, especially the local population that's hosting the event? Or is it more for the corporations and people that are outside of that local economy? So it's just looking at the power and the stakeholders of those issues. And then also socially, does it create positive social outcomes, or does it lead to things related to drug abuse, over-tourism, and crime? We did a whole big long case study on Burning Man. There's a couple videos that talk about it here that are helpful as well. And then you did some research and shared. We also watched a video about the Glastonbury Festival in the UK, which is another type of festival in a rural area, and just did some comparisons. That would be a good thing just to check out again as well. All right, well, let's check out our time again. 3 minutes. We can maybe get through actually, you know what I'll do? I'll start a new one right now and do 5.3, 5.4.